Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and today we're going to be trying out our final weather-based team in ranked double battles. And this time we're going to be using my favorite kind of weather, unbearable heat. Getting right into it, I realize it was probably a mistake to record this late at night, because half the people we go up against have names I cannot read. Anyways, they start with Iron Hands and Land OT, and we bring in Torkoal and Fluttermane. Torkoal being our dedicated Sunsetter, and with Fluttermane's ability, she gets a speed boost in the sun. We both start the game by terastallizing our Pokémon. We terastallize Torkoal, and they terastallize Iron Hands into a water type, which is really unfortunate for us. Fluttermane moves first and hits Iron Hands with a Moonblast, bringing it down to just over half its HP. Landorus then hits Torkoal with a Stomping Tantrum, also taking out about half of its HP. Iron Hands moves next and hits Fluttermane with a Wild Charge, getting the one-hit KO, but also suffering from recoil damage. Torkoal then hits it with a Flamethrower, but thanks to it terastallizing into a water type, we don't actually do too much damage. So that's really unfortunate. We bring in Arcanine next, whose Intimidate ability lowers their attack. We try to hit Iron Hands with a Solar Beam, but they swap into Urshifu, who takes a pretty solid amount of damage from Solar Beam. Landorus lands another Stomping Tantrum on Torkoal, and we're left with just under a quarter of our HP. Torkoal can then retaliate with a Flamethrower, bringing Landorus down to just under half its HP. On the following turn, both Urshifu and Torkoal use Protect. Arcanine's Solar Beam is blocked, but it's then hit by a U-turn from Landorus, and it swaps out for the Water-type Iron Hands. Iron Hands hits Arcanine with a Fake Out, causing it to flinch, so Urshifu is able to take out Torkoal with a Surging Strike. And in comes our final Pokémon, Great Tusk. Urshifu protects again this turn, saving it from a Solar Beam from Arcanine. But Great Tusk is able to outspeed Iron Hands and hit it with a knockoff for the KO. Landorus comes back in, and its Intimidate ability drops our attack, so that's not too good. We finally manage to land another Solar Beam on Urshifu, and it goes down. Great Tusk then outspeeds Landorus and hits it with a knockoff, but thanks to our attack drop, we just barely miss getting the KO, and it can then land a Stomping Tantrum on Arcanine, taking it out. You see, this is why I hate this thing so much. It's ugly and it's stupid strong. And their final Pokemon is a Fluttermane of their own. It outspeeds Great Tusk and hits it with a Moonblast, getting the one-hit KO. Great Tusk, more like mediocre Tusk. For our next fight, we're up against Mars, and they open with a Skeledirge and a Glimmora, and we bring in Torkoal and Fluttermane again. Skeledirge is immediately terastallized into a normal type, making it immune to Fluttermane's incoming Shadow Ball. Glimmora then outspeeds Torkoal and takes it out with a single Power Gem, so that's not good. Skeledirge then hits Fluttermane with a Torch Song, bringing it below half HP and boosting its own special attack. We bring in Armarouge next, and because Fluttermane has the choice specs, we're forced into using Shadow Ball again. This time we target Glimmora, and we just barely miss getting the KO. So Glimmora is able to hit Armarouge hard with a Power Gem. Thankfully, they survive, and they're able to hit Skeledirge with an Aura Sphere. It's brought below half HP, but now it can hit Fluttermane with another Torch Song, this time getting the KO. Our final Pokemon is Arcanine. It outspeeds Glimmora and takes it out with a Solar Beam. And then Armarouge is free to take out Skeledirge with an Aura Sphere. Mars' next Pokemon are Breloom and Mimikyu. Mimikyu hits Armarouge with a priority Shadow Sneak, getting the KO. But that leaves Arcanine free to hit Breloom with a Flare Blitz. But because Breloom is holding the Focus Sash, it lives off of just 1 HP. But luckily, we get the burn. Breloom then hits Arcanine with a Spore, putting us to sleep, but it then goes down to the burn damage. Mimikyu is then free to spend the next couple turns hammering away at Arcanine. And by the time she finally wakes up, her HP is pretty low. We hit Mimikyu with a Flare Blitz, but thanks to its Disguise ability, it barely takes any damage, and Arcanine goes down to a Shadow Sneak on the next turn, losing us another fight. I'm starting to think we peaked at the Hail team. Any hoodles, for our next fight we're up against someone that really likes Dragonite. They start with Landorus and Iron Hands, and we bring in Torkoal and Arcanine. Why did Game Freak have to make the ugliest Pokemon meta? I'm tired of seeing this stupid thing everywhere. It plagued me back in Gen 6, it plagues me today. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get revenge this time. Anyways, we have Arcanine use Helping Hand, boosting the power of Torkoal's next attack. Landorus hits Arcanine with a Stomping Tantrum, leaving us with just barely over a quarter of our HP. And because either I am really bad at math, or because I like to think I learned from my mistakes, we go for an Earth Power on Iron Hands, and it barely does any damage. This thing has less special defense than a Lightyba. How is it tanking everything so well? Anyways, we're doing the same thing next turn. Arcanine uses Helping Hands, and then gets taken out by a Stomping Tantrum from Landorus. Iron Hands hits Torkoal with a Wild Charge, but it doesn't do too much more damage. And we actually learn from our mistakes this time, and we hit Landorus with a Flamethrower. And it just barely survives. That's fantastic. Next, we're bringing out Great Tusk. They swap Landorus out for Baxcalibur, saving it from an incoming Rapid Spin from Great Tusk. While we aren't doing too much damage, we do get a speed boost because of this. Iron Hands hits Great Tusk with a Drain Punch, barely doing any damage, and it turns out I did not learn my lesson because for some reason I had Torkoal use Earth Power again. On the following turn, Baxcalibur is terrestrialized into a Fairy type, which I'm okay with. Torkoal uses Protect, and Great Tusk can use Earthquake. This takes out Iron Hands, and just barely misses getting the KO on Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur retaliates with an Icicle Crash, but fails to get the KO on Great Tusk. And in comes their final Pokemon, Tornadus. Great Tusk moves first and hits Baxcalibur with a Close Combat, taking it out. Tornadus then hits Great Tusk with a Hurricane, also taking it out. Torkoal then retaliates with a Flamethrower, leaving it with just over half its HP. For our final Pokemon, we're bringing in Fluttermane. And they bring Landorus back in. Tornadus moves first and hits Torkoal with a Taunt, forcing it into only using attacking moves, which was our plan anyways. Fluttermane can then hit Tornadus with a Moonblast, getting the KO. Landorus then lands an Earthquake, nearly taking out both of our Pokemon. But now it's Torkoal's turn, and they land a Flamethrower, getting the KO and finally earning us a win today. Suck it, Landorus, stupid Pokemon. For our next fight, we're up against Domain Strain. Yeah, I'm not going to be calling him that this whole time. They start with Urshifu and Thundurus, and we bring in Torkoal and Noivern. This is no longer a video about my journey through competitive doubles. This is now a video dedicated to my hatred for these abominations. Thundurus starts the match by using Thunder Wave on Torkoal and missing. Noivern then uses Tailwind for our team, doubling our speed for the next few turns. Urshifu hits Torkoal with a close combat, but it doesn't do too much damage, and Torkoal can hit Thundurus with a flamethrower, leaving it at just over half HP. On the following turn, Thundurus actually lands its Thunder Wave this time, but it hits Noivern. Luckily, Noivern can break through Paralysis and use Boom Burst. This nearly takes out both Torkoal and Thundurus, while taking out about half of Urshifu's HP. And because Noivern was holding the Throat Spray item, it gets a special attack increase now. Urshifu can then hit Torkoal with a Surging Strike, and if not for taking damage from Boom Burst, Torkoal would have probably survived. Yeah, Torkoal's death may have been my fault. Sorry guys. We decide to bring in Leafeon next. Urshifu gets swapped out, and in its place comes Wo-Chien. Thundurus lands a Thunder Wave on Leafeon, paralyzing us, but luckily we break through and land a pitifully weak Leaf Blade on Wo-Chien. But Noivern also breaks through Paralysis again and takes out Thundurus with a Dragon Pulse. Their next Pokemon is a Flutter Mane. They immediately Terrastallize it into a pure Fairy type, and they hit us with a Dazzling Gleam. Leafeon barely hangs on, but Noivern goes down. Leafeon is then able to retaliate with a Leaf Blade, but it's not enough to get the KO, and Wo-Chien hits us with a Snarl, finishing off Leafeon. For our final Pokemon, we have Typhlosion. They swap Flutter Mane out for Urshifu, and Wo-Chien uses Protect. We Terrastallize and use Eruption. Between the sunny weather boosting our Fire-type damage, the choice specs we're holding, the normal same type attack boost, and the Terra-type boost, Urshifu had absolutely no hope of surviving that, and it goes down. Flutter Mane comes back in, and it outspeeds Typhlosion, hitting it hard with a Shadow Ball, leaving us with barely any HP left. This lowers Eruption's power just enough, so that while Flutter Mane goes down, Wo-Chien just barely hangs on. One foul play later, and Typhlosion goes down, losing us another fight. And for the final fight of the day, we're up against another mystery stranger. They open with Articuno and Wo-Chien, and we bring in Torkoal and Noivern. Noivern moves first and sets up a Tailwind for our team. Torkoal is then hit hard by a Hurricane from Articuno, just barely hanging on. I'm pretty sure that move drops to 50% accuracy in the sun, but it just keeps hitting us. Wo-Chien then hits Noivern with a foul play, not doing a whole lot of damage, and Torkoal can hit Wo-Chien with a flamethrower, bringing it below half HP. On the following turn, Noivern hits Articuno with a Super Fang, taking out half of its HP before Articuno can hit Torkoal with a Freezing Glare, getting the KO. And Wo-Chien hits Noivern with a Leech Seed, so we're going to be hemorrhaging HP now. But now we can bring in Typhlosion. We Terrastallize Typhlosion, boosting the power of its Fire-type moves even further, and they Terrastallize Wo-Chien into a Poison type, removing its Fire-type weakness. But that doesn't matter. It's hit by a pretty weak Dragon Pulse from Noivern, and then Typhlosion can use Eruption, taking out both Articuno and Wo-Chien. Their next two Pokemon are Zapdos and Urshifu. A Dragon Pulse from Noivern takes out more than half of Urshifu's health, and an Eruption from Typhlosion finishes off both Pokemon, winning us the fight. Well, that's where we'll be ending things for now, with 8 wins and 7 losses. Thanks to the recent DLC adding even more Pokemon to the game, some of which would probably go really well with my weather-based teams. We'll be working on improving these teams, and then we'll come back to this. But until then, I have a couple Nuzlocke videos coming up soon. Anyways, I've been Hextasy. Thanks for watching.